guys, it's Jerningam here. We're going to be talking about the news channel and showing Boris Johnson talking about his Brexit deal. I think they got a Brexit deal for tomorrow or something. I don't know. Who knows? Let's try and get this phone sorted out. Who knows about this sort of subject, but I'm just trying to make sure I can get the full fucking TV. Sorry about the swearing, but I really am trying to understand what the hell's going on here. I got the phone wrong bloody way. No, it's not right. 2 seconds. It's a problem every time. There we go. Yeah, I want it to balance, but the thing is, the thing's not balancing properly. There we go. Is it right? Is it working? Is it right? Just give me a second while I sort this phone out. It doesn't seem to be wanting to do anything. Is that working? There we go. Must be working. Unless I've got the wrong sort of button. Right now, let's see. Okay, we can just do like that. That should work. Sorry it took me so long to sort the phone out. But anyway, I just can't stand fucking noisy cars! Anyway, if I get out of the way, I was going to get angry.
The optimistic news emanating from Brussels is to be believed. A draft Brexit deal could be published as early as tomorrow. It appears Boris Johnson has potentially made major concessions to EU demands over the Irish border. But if he has, Eurosceptic Conservative MPs suggest they may still be on board to vote for an agreement. However, amid the optimism, a reality check, even if a deal is reached, how can it be turned into law before the end of the month? Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is in Westminster. Gary.
Well, encouraging news for Boris Johnson from some of the voices around Westminster today. The ERG, the Tory MPs who gave Theresa May so much pain and agony, signalling that they were open-minded about what appeared to be taking shape. Some of them went into number 10 to get a briefing. The DUP, interestingly, also part of the alliance that have been voting against Theresa May's deal, not signalling that they're going to vote with the government. I think privately, from accounts I'm hearing, agonising, but in public trying to put a brave face on it, and any minute now, if they haven't already, going into number 10 for what could be a long evening sitting in an anteroom to be consulted about various things that are going in and out of that deal. They swam for a long time with the ERG. If the ERG did go over to the Prime Minister's side, I don't think they'd want to be alone, particularly if, as the numbers stacked up, it looked like they were the people who would stop to deal. But that's the awkward position they potentially find themselves in tonight. The government is also fishing for support amongst the 21 Tory MPs it took the whip away from, as it were, on the other wing of the party, and trying to get Labour MPs on side. So they're obviously acting in a way that suggests this deal might just be taking shape, and there is immense hope inside the Tory party that that could happen, a deal, and that then they could use that to suggest, yes, it can all be over. It very nearly is over. To hope with the momentum of that, they can try to push some more Tory MPs in their direction, and also, they hope, affect the polls outside in the country and get a bounce out there. But MPs on the other side, including some of those 21 former Tory MPs, the Whip, when they tried to block a no-deal Brexit, they are determined that whatever happens, even if a deal comes back, there must be a delay, because they feel that the speed at which all this is happening means without a delay to the Brexit date of October 31st, there cannot be proper scrutiny of any deal. The EU's chief negotiator, briefing EU foreign ministers in Luxembourg, said it was high time Britain came up with a legal text enshrining the changes it wants to Theresa May's Brexit deal.
Reaching an agreement is still possible. Obviously, any agreement must work for everyone. The whole of the United Kingdom and the whole of the European Union. Let me add also that it is high time to turn good intentions in a legal text.
In Dublin, the Varadkar said Boris Johnson had assured him he could get a deal with the EU through the Commons.
The Prime Minister said to me that if we could come to an agreement between the EU and the UK, that he was confident that he would be able to get it through the House of Commons. But of course, there's a few hurdles between now and then.
Westminster was
Drinking kiwi and apple. Munster.
Just
energy
down the
drink.
road from here,
Not beer.
government was focused on mustering a majority.
Find it on
for its deal,
Facebook,
if it gets
Twitter,
trying to woo
Instagram.
die-hard Brexiteers who'd repeatedly helped to defeat Theresa May's Brexit divorce deal, which they thought hugged the EU too close.
All I'm happy to say is that it's a very constructive conversation, and that I am optimistic that it is possible to reach a tolerable deal, which I'll be able to vote for.
Number 10 has also been trying to woo the other wing, Tories like Stephen Hammond, one of 21 MPs who was thrown out of the party for trying to block a no-deal Brexit. There's been suggestions that Number 10 are trying to sort of peel you apart amongst the 21 who lost the whip. Some are coming into Number 10 for cosy chat, some not invited.
Well, all I'll say is that people are in different positions. I wouldn't listen too much. I mean, understandably, I understand they're Number 10 are reaching out to those people who didn't support things in March. They're understandably reaching out because, as you know, politics and ability to govern is all about mathematics, and that's having enough votes. So they need to be reaching out to everybody.
And they reached out to you, and have they done a little bit to build up a bit of trust that maybe wasn't there before?
Well, I think that whole process of, shall we say, the initial flirting is going on.
Good evening.
Gary, how are you?
Does it look like what's taking shape is something you could support, Arlene? Tonight, the DUP leader, Arlene Foster, will be leading a delegation from her party into Number 10. There's speculation they could be there for some time. Wasn't customs checks at the border of Northern Ireland a red line? Privately, DUP sources are worried about the idea of customs checks on goods entering Northern Ireland from Britain. Concerned at how consent is given to these special arrangements, some will think across the party's own red lines.
Well, it's not about a veto, it's about respecting actually the Belfast Agreement, which of course recognises that there has to be the consent of the unionist people and consent of the nationalist people.
Is it less do or die and more delay?
That's a good one.
The Prime Minister's chief aide, Dominic Cummings, unimpressed by the idea of a delay. A deal tonight could create a possible path to avoiding that, but not a guaranteed one.
Well, joining us now from Brussels is our political correspondent, Paul McNamara. Paul, where do things stand?
Well, let's use Boris Johnson's own analogy. About a week or so ago, he was talking about a broad landing zone. Well, if there's any chance it'll happen by October 31st, right now we hear of slow of wheels being lowered and a deal about to land. Whisper it quietly and cautiously. There are some diplomats here who think there might be something on the horizon. EU sources, very close to the negotiating team, have been telling us that the UK has been shifting its position on there being a customs union on the island of Ireland, and also a shift on the Northern Ireland veto. Right now, as I'm standing here shivering in the cold, the UK's chief negotiator, David Frost, is in this building behind me, deep in negotiations. Because our source tells us that there is a chance, a small chance, but a chance nonetheless, that by tomorrow morning, the text of a deal could be delivered to 27 diplomats from across Europe. It's a small chance, but it is a chance.
And briefly, if that text is agreed, Gary's suggesting there could still be a push for an extension of that October 31st deadline. So, Brexit delayed again?
Quite possibly, because there's just so much process to get through. Back in the UK, Boris Johnson would have to get this through Westminster. As Theresa May found out, that's no easy task. Right here, it would have to get agreed by 27 member states, diplomats here, and then the heads of state. And one of them said to us today, we need to be sure that the deal doesn't put our companies and our people at a disadvantage. So even if there is a deal in place by this time tomorrow, no guarantee of Brexit, do or die by October 31st.
With that, we need to do. People probably keep coming back. Anyway, let's move on to Turkey's defence and military.
No ceasefire and no backing down, despite American pleas. If anything, the fighting seemed to pick up pace. But the growing condemnation has hardened Turkish resolve.
Good morning, sir. Sorry.
The country's vice president delivered a tough message at the presidential palace. No amount of arms embargoes or sanctions are going to deter them.
Sanctions, of course, we have considered about sanctions. We do consider about the sanctions, but none of those sanctions can be a threat, can be a more threat than the threat comes from the other side of the border, terrorist threats. So as Turkey, we are decisive, very determined to clear up the area from the terrorists, no matter what happens, no matter who says what.
And Turkey insists its operation is a fight against terrorism, no matter that the people they're aiming their guns at were only a few days ago their allies' allies. Turkey says America and Britain chose the wrong partners.
There's a state fighting against a terrorist organization, fighting against terrorism. And you expect us to sit and talk with terrorists?
Well,
Of course we will.
they were former allies of the Americans and the British.
That's a pity. If US and British or any other country around the world ally with the terrorists. So we hope that they do have a misunderstanding of who they are. Otherwise, we don't want to consider that any country who ally with us are the allies of terrorists.
In other words, you can't be allies with us both. On the battlefield, in the key town of Manbij, it was Russian flags flying. President Putin seems to be filling the vacuum left by the Americans, with Turkey ready to take on the Syrian regime to snatch Manbij.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
been talking with Russia as well. Our ministers and our institutions are in constant talk with all the parts. Again, we hope that that's not going to be the issue. We are determined to take the control of the area.
In the theatre of war, the injuries and deaths are mounting, and the UK's decision to join the EU arms embargo on Turkey will make little difference. Turkey is pressing ahead.
We are extremely careful for the civilian casualties, for kids, women, and elderly. Extremely careful.
But the fighting's displaced hundreds of thousands, and Turkey insists the refugees are Europe's problem too.
So European countries have to stand up and have to take the responsibility. So if they want to go to Europe, we can prevent for a certain time what we have done so far, but we cannot do it again forever. So this is not a threat in it, this is a reality.
1 week on, the region's landscape has changed dramatically. The only constant is the misery for the civilians. Alex Crawford, Sky News, Turkey.
Man, what a day we're living in, you defenders. Hate adverts on the TV. Wastes so much time.
Most of a lot. 300 million people flew in and out of the top UK airports last year, and these passengers returning home to Bristol were well aware of the impact they were having on the climate.
I think we do need to fly less. I think it'd be a very hard decision for people to make because we just live with it. It's a normal part of life now, isn't it?
I am thinking about not taking so many flights. Not that I take a lot.
Next year we'll probably stay in this country.
Sky News has seen airport master plans revealing that they're hoping to grow passenger numbers by 67% in the next decade or two. That's almost 3 times more than the government's climate advisors say is sustainable. Heathrow's controversial plan to build a third runway will help it add 50 million passengers to the 80 million that already fly in and out of here. And even if Boris Johnson does block those plans, our research shows that 3/4 of all future passenger growth actually comes from other UK airports.
Southampton currently flies 2 million passengers a year. This is going to soar to 5 million. And Doncaster Sheffield flies just over 1 million now, but the airport is planning for 7 million in less than 20 years. The second biggest airport, Gatwick, wants to boost passenger numbers from 46 million now to a staggering 70 million. In all, airports hope to add another 192 million passengers. The rest of the economy is having to cut carbon to almost zero. The airport's expansion plans horrified the chief climate advisor.
Well, it's not a question of liking to avoid it. It could not possibly happen. It would be impossible to meet our legal obligations under the Climate Change Act. So there is no doubt that you could have that expansion if it had that effect.
Belfast City Airport hopes to almost double the 2.5 million passengers who currently use it, but it insists the growth is good for the local economy.
We're an island off an island, so air travel is essential. We're fortunate with airlines with young fleets of aircraft, so the newer generation aircraft, the more modern aircraft have fewer emissions. So if we grow with that type of product, we can actually grow and reduce our emissions at the same time.
The Committee on Climate Change warns greener aircraft aren't enough and controls on frequent flyers are inevitable. Later this week, Heathrow's third runway returns to the courts, a huge test for the government's commitment to cutting carbon.
And there's a great myth about the Lord Chancellor.
Going for the Queen's speech now, guys.
And state openings, but more than 20 years, there's been no walking backwards.
This was live a couple of days ago, but I'm filming it on the phone, so yeah. People haven't seen it
That was the theory, and so I suppose it's of note.
Here he comes with the purse containing the speech. Well, MP for Swindon.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons, my government's priority has always been to secure the United Kingdom's departure from the European Union on the 31st of October. My government intends to work towards a new partnership with the European Union based on free trade and friendly cooperation. My ministers will work to implement new regimes for fisheries, agriculture and trade, seizing the opportunities that arise from leaving the European Union. An immigration movement will lay the foundation for a fair, modern and global immigration system. My government remains committed to ensuring that resident European citizens who have built their lives in and contributed so much to the United Kingdom have the right to remain. The bill will include measures that reinforce this commitment for the financial services and legal sectors. My government's new economic plan will be underpinned by a responsible fiscal strategy, investing in economic growth while maintaining the sustainability of the public. Measures will be brought forward to support and strengthen the National Health Service, its workforce and resources, enabling it to deliver the highest quality care. New laws will be taken forward to help implement the National Health Service's long-term plan in England and to establish an independent body to investigate serious healthcare incidents. My government will bring forward proposals to reform adult social care in England to ensure dignity in old age. My ministers will continue work to reform the Mental Health Act to improve respect for and care of those receiving treatment. My government is committed to addressing violent crime and to strengthening public confidence in the criminal justice system. New sentencing laws will see that the most serious offenders spend longer in custody to reflect better the severity of their crimes. Measures will be introduced to improve the justice system's response to foreign national offenders. My government will work to improve safety and security in prisons and to strengthen the rehabilitation of offenders. Proposals will be brought forward to ensure that victims receive the support they need and the justice they deserve. Laws will be introduced to ensure that the parole system recognises the pain to victims and their families caused by offenders refusing to disclose information relating to their crimes. A new duty will be placed on public sector bodies, ensuring they work together to address serious violence. Police officers will be provided with the protections they need to keep the population safe. They will also be awarded the power to arrest individuals who are wanted by trusted international partners. My government will bring forward measures to protect individuals, families, and their homes. Legislation will transform the approach of the justice system and other agencies to victims of domestic abuse and minimize the impact of divorce, particularly on children. My ministers will continue to develop proposals to improve internet safety and will bring forward laws to implement new building safety standards. My ministers will ensure that all young people have access to an excellent education, unlocking their full potential and preparing them for the world of work. My government will take steps to make work fairer, introducing measures that will support those working hard. To help people plan for the future, measures will be brought forward to provide simpler oversight of pension savings. To protect people's savings for later life, new laws will provide greater powers to tackle irresponsible management of private pension schemes. To ensure that the benefits of a prospering economy reach every corner of the United Kingdom, my ministers will bring forward a national infrastructure strategy. This will set out a long-term vision to improve the nation's digital, transport and energy infrastructure. New legislation will help accelerate the delivery of fast, reliable and secure broadband networks to millions of homes. An aviation bill will provide for the effective and efficient management of the United Kingdom's airspace. Proposals on railway reform will be. A white paper will be published to set out my government's ambitions for unleashing regional potential in England and to enable decisions that affect local people to be made at a local level. My government is committed to establishing the United Kingdom as a world leader in scientific capability and space technology. Increased investment in science will be complemented by the development of a new funding agency, a more open visa system, and an ambitious national space strategy. My ministers remain committed to the environment for future generations. For the first time, environmentals will be enshrined in law. Measures will be introduced to improve air and water quality, tackle plastic pollution, and restore habitats so plants and wildlife can thrive. Legislation will also create new legally binding environmental improvement targets. A new world-leading independent regulator will be established in statute to scrutinise environmental policy and law, investigate complaints, and take enforcement action.
TV's just gone off, guys. I do apologise about that, guys. The TV went off. The hell? Where's the Queen's speech gone? There we go.
And there's a great myth.
2 minutes, guys. Something's going wrong with the TV.
National Health Service, its workforce and resources, bodies, ensuring they work together to address serious violence. Police officers will be provided with the protections they need to keep the population safe. They will also be awarded the power to arrest individuals who are wanted by
We've done that already. So.
homes. An aviation bill will provide
the
for
thing
the
crashed, so I had to
effective
reset
and
the
efficient
video.
management of the United
You can see
Kingdom's
it on the
airspace.
video. Sorry about that.
Proposals on railway reform will be brought forward. A white paper will be published to set out my government's ambitions for unleashing regional potential in England and to enable decisions that affect local people to be made at a local level. My government is committed to establishing the United Kingdom as a world leader in scientific capability and space technology. Increased investment in science will be complemented by the development of a new funding agency, a more open visa system strategy. My ministers remain committed to protecting and improving the environment for future generations. For the first time, environmental principles will be enshrined in law. Measures will be introduced to improve air and water quality, tackle plastic pollution, and restore habitats so plants and wildlife can thrive. Legislation will also create new legally binding environmental improvement targets. A new world-leading independent regulator will be established in statute to scrutinize environmental policy and law, investigate complaints, and take...
I don't know why the TV keeps turning itself off. It's done that twice now.
to promote and protect the welfare of animals, including banning imports from trophy hunting. The integrity and prosperity of the Union that binds the four nations of the United Kingdom is of the utmost importance to my government. My ministers will forward measures to support citizens across all the nations of the United Kingdom. My government remains committed to working with all parties in Northern Ireland to support the return of devolved government and address the legacy of the past. My government will take steps to protect the integrity of democracy and the electoral system in the United Kingdom. My government will continue to invest in our gallant armed forces. My ministers will honour the Armed Forces Covenant and the commitment to spend at least 2% of national income on defence. As the United Kingdom leaves the European Union, my government will ensure that it continues to play a leading role in global affairs, defending its interests and promoting its values. My government will be at the forefront of efforts to solve the most complex international security issues. It will champion global free trade and work alongside international partners to solve the most pressing global challenges. It will prioritise tackling climate change and ensuring that all girls have access to 12 years of quality education. Members of the House of Commons, estimates for the public services will be laid before you. My Lords and members of the House of Commons, other measures will be laid before you. I pray that the blessing of Almighty God may rest upon your councils.
As you guys can see, I've just paused the video. For a minute. I wanted to show you guys something in my bedroom. So if you guys can see down here, I've got a spider in my house, which is, you see it there? I'm zooming in. I'm still zooming in. As you can see, that's a spider in my house. I don't want to scare this poor spider, but that's a spider in my house. I'm leaving it alone. It's only a spider, but loads of people had the problem. I mean, look how big it is. It's a big spider, see? So now I've filmed it, and they're going to put the phone back now. Thought I'd film a bit of the spider. It's not doing any harm, it's not annoying me, and yeah, there we go. Put this bloody phone back. Right, just trying to... Shouldn't have really moved the phone, to be honest. But, let's second. Don't get the bloody phone there, but it won't stay. Bloody stay where it is. There we go. It's still trying to fall. Sorry this is taking me so long again. Just want it to stay there. It can be a bit frustrating at times when something doesn't stay in the same place. Right, there we go. Crack down. Oh. I'm just trying to find... I'm looking for in the speech here. There we go. Should be about right, or... Right, that's alright. There we are.
So now the Lord Chancellor retrieves the text of the speech and puts it in his purse. And after Her Majesty and Prince Charles there, the heir to the throne sitting next to her, have processed out with the pages carrying the train, we will then see the MPs return to the House of Commons. Steps up to the throne, which even the monarch has to navigate.
Right, so we'll try and go on there again.
And there's
Well, all the pomp and pageantry you'd expect was rolled out this morning for the Queen's speech, intended to set out the government's plans for the coming session. But what coming session? The government doesn't have a majority, is desperate for a general election, and thinks Parliament is dead. The speech itself might well be voted down. So Jeremy Corbyn dismissed it as a farcical propaganda exercise. And on the key issue of Brexit, the Queen did not say the UK would be leaving the EU on October 31st. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is with me, and some breaking news from the talks that suggest we might not be.
The Queen might have been onto something. Yes, the Finnish Prime Minister, Finland holds the presidency of the EU at the moment, has just said that there are no practical or legal ways to find agreement on Brexit before this week's summit. We need more time. Now, this throws Boris Johnson's timing. He was hoping that there could be agreement tied up at the European Council summit, ready for a vote on Saturday in the House of Commons. Special sitting, of course, doesn't happen very often. Those timings now look extremely challenged, to put it politely. As you were saying, this was, though, the day of pomp and pageantry, and that tells you what Boris Johnson also thinks the election, which is coming towards us at some point, is going to be about. Not just Brexit, he thinks, but he can only win if he puts a focus on the domestic agenda as well and tries to convince the country that he cares about the NHS. He'll pump money into that and other public services, and he owns what he sees as the middle ground of politics, albeit with some tough messages on crime, which he thinks also belong in that centre ground. So he sort of commandeered the pageantry of the Queen's speech to try and turn the focus onto this domestic agenda. It is one of the perks of office. He hasn't got many others, like being able to win votes or anything like that. So he uses this one, and boy, did he use it today. The government put Parliament's full pomp on display, even as it plots to run a Parliament election. This speech did Westminster. No one thinks this government can implement most of it. 45 short of a majority in the Commons, with other institutions frustrating its will too. The real action was elsewhere in Brussels, where officials are trying to scrape together a last-minute deal with the deadline only days away. The Queen could be forgiven for being confused. The opposition claimed she was being dragooned into a party political broadcast.
My government's priority has always been to secure the United Kingdom's departure from the European Union on the 31st of October.
It's government by theatre. I mean, this is a government that hasn't got a majority. This is not a programme for government. This was a manifesto which they got the Queen to recite.
Some of the most prominent measures promised matched the 2016 Vote Leave campaign pledges. A new post-Brexit immigration system based on the Australian point system, more spending on the NHS. There was also a tough-on-crime message which the Tories intend to put centre stage in the election campaign.
The Prime Minister promised that this Queen's speech would dazzle us. On closer inspection, Mr. Speaker, it is nothing more than fool's gold.
It's our job as a campaigning government to level up investment across the nation. And I'm proud now that we are seeing the biggest programme of investment in the NHS for a generation.
Like the Vote Leave bus, Boris Johnson wants to wrap himself in the NHS logo. Attention kept switching, though, to Brussels and the progress on the UK's last-minute proposals to keep Northern Ireland in the UK Customs Union, but in effect behaving like it was still in the EU Customs Union. Under the partnership approach, cars imported into Britain from the US at zero tariff under a free trade agreement would then have to pay the EU 10% tariff if they were heading into Northern Ireland. Ireland would not technically be in the EU Customs Union. If one of the cars stayed put in Northern Ireland, the supplier could get a refund on the tariff. If the other car went on into Ireland and the EU, the tariff paid in Britain would be passed on by the UK authorities to the EU. One of Theresa May's Brexit negotiating team worries that Boris Johnson's number 10 may have focused too late on the compromise plan for it all to be nailed down in time for this week's summit and Saturday's planned Commons vote.
If we had put forward these proposals 2 months ago, we might be in a different place.
Why didn't we, do you think?
Well, I think it's very hard to say. These were proposals which had been worked up internally in government previously. I worked on them when I was in government over the past 3 years. So it is hard to understand why the government didn't look at them. But
some people would say it's because the government was too focused on no deal and didn't really think this was worth the effort.
Well, it's entirely possible that was the case.
The SNP said the government's hopes of kicking off a withdrawal agreement bill with a Commons vote this Saturday was unrealistic.
Announcing on Monday a bill on an agreement that doesn't exist and expecting it to pass through this House on Saturday. Mr. Speaker, what recklessness!
Having been involved in many of the previous decisive weeks, I think there is a very good chance it is not the final decisive week, and that's come.
Did the Northern Ireland Secretary know what switched Number 10's focus so late in the day? It was said the Prime Minister became more focused on getting a deal once he had security briefings about the threat to Northern Ireland from no deal. Is that right?
I'm not going to go into those sorts of briefings, but what I do know is that I support the Prime Minister fully in getting a deal that's in the best interest of Northern Ireland, and in my view, the best interest of the United Kingdom.
You're off resignation watch now.
I've never been on it.
A week after the state opening of Parliament, after 6 days of debating the Queen's speech, MPs normally vote to thank the monarch for coming to address them. But her current government looks like continuing its 100% record of losing votes and won't win that one either. It's already been denied an early general election which was supposed to happen tomorrow and carries on nearly powerless as it waits on a deal it can't be sure will happen.
Well, just around the corner from here, the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, is addressing a Labour rally. And from there, I'm joined by his colleague from the Shadow Cabinet, Laura Pidcock. Laura Pidcock, there are 2 things that could happen this week. Boris Johnson could get a deal or not get a deal. If he doesn't get a deal and has to trigger a delay, will you then immediately go for the general election that he wants?
Sorry, I didn't catch the tail end of what you said there.
My question was, if there is a delay to the Brexit process, if the Ben Act kicks in, will you immediately then try to trigger a general election as Boris Johnson wants?
Well, you know, it's just so hypothetical. We do not trust Boris Johnson at all. We don't know the details of any deal. We don't know what will be put before us. There's been some deals coming back and forward. We have been very clear as a political party. Our conference decided that actually we do want a general election as soon as possible once no deal is taken off the table.
Will you trigger it?
Once no deal is taken off the table. I'm not going to engage in hypothetical scenarios. You know as well as I do, it's very difficult to ascertain the Prime Minister's next move because this is games, and more games with Boris Johnson, and actually we are concerned about real people's lives, and that's why I was so disappointed in the Queen's speech today.
Hang on, I mean, you've already engaged in hypothetical scenarios. The Ben Act is all about a hypothetical scenario in which there is no deal and you need more time. So
no, I think
let's talk about that. And the question is, are you going to go? Hang on, let me get the question.
Hang on, that wasn't a hypothetical scenario. That was us legislating for what the Prime Minister has said they are willing to put to the nation. They are willing to come out without a deal.
I'm asking you a simple question.
We have said we needed to legislate
about when the general election is going to be triggered.
It will be triggered as soon as we can make sure we are not crashing out of the European Union. Do you think that I don't want to sit with the radical agenda? Of course I do, but I also don't want to the farmers that I represent to take the hit on tariffs. You know, they rely on exporting sheep meat, and you know, I represent an area that has a dairy farm. We have to absolutely make sure that no deal isn't a reality. Okay. And I cannot trust this Prime Minister one bit at all. You saw absolutely no detail, nothing in the Queen's speech today that would actually help the people that I represent. This was parliamentary games. I'm not going to engage in that. I want to see what happens this week. I want to see what the Prime Minister comes back with. And as soon as we are able to go to the people, where we are not committing economic suicide for many of the sectors in this nation and many of the regions, then we will have that general election.
If he gets a deal, and that comes back to Parliament, and he's got support for that deal in Parliament, will you, the Labour Party, try to get a referendum on that deal before you go for a general election?
We've always said that the people should have the final say. It was decided at our conference. That is absolutely clear, that after all this time negotiating, there should be a credible leave option, and that should be set against Remain. When we have a general election is about when we can take off the table.
Yeah, it's what comes first.
It's as simple as that.
Could the referendum come first?
I think we need a general election. I do not want to keep the Tories in power for one day longer. And with the Labour Party in government, people would get a referendum. They would get a final say on all of these political shenanigans. They would have a credible leave option on the table set against Remain. I would prefer a general election. And with the Labour Party,
so you disagree with
get
Rebecca
a referendum and that final say.
And
done within 6 months. And I think these, you know, trying to create these really tiring divisions. You know, we have had a Queen's speech today that said absolutely nothing about the 14 million people in poverty. 4.3 million of those people are children. We are serious, and in my department we are serious. You might not want to hear it, but we are serious about eradicating in-work poverty and child poverty. That's what I care about, not about, you know, indulging in what splits there might be in the Labour Party. This is, you know, gossip, and it's not helpful, and it's not helpful about the eradication.
It's not gossip, it's on the record. But Laura Pidcock, thank you very much indeed for joining us. The Conservative MP, Bim is with me now. What was the point of today when we don't have a majority to get this Queen's speech through? I mean,
I think my phone's just died on me, guys.
Well, it's about setting out.
So I may have to charge it up.
Set out exactly what it is we'll do, and we will be introducing those bills. They won't just be left; they will be introduced. And if the Labour Party,
you don't have a majority.
Well, of course, but we are a minority.
I may have to end it there, guys. I think the phone's just died on me. So thank you for joining me. Please like, comment, subscribe, share these videos with your friends, and I'll catch you in the next video when the phone's charged. Thank you for joining me. Peace. The next one. Peace.